Thank you so much for joining us today for our virtual interview series. This series is designed to let students know more about career paths that they maybe never even knew existed. We're excited to be here today. If you want to see our full guest lineup for every Thursday, it is on our website at www.reachandteach.rocks, ROCKS. Our full guest lineup is on there. This series will go all the way through the end of November. We're very excited. Also, at the end of this interview today, we'll have a Q&A opportunity. So if you have questions for our guest, drop them into the comments or chat section, and we will make sure to get your questions answered by our guest today. Dave, we are so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Would you mind taking just a few minutes to tell me your name, where you're from, and what you do?
All right. Dave Reynolds. I'm from New York City, Brooklyn, New York. That's where I grew up. I'm originally from the Caribbean. I was born in Jamaica, and I came here at a pretty young age and grew up in New York. I'm a broadcast engineer in the media production field. That's television or film production. And what else was that, April, that you wanted me to let you know?
So tell us a little bit about your day-to-day activities. What does your career look like when you go into work?
Okay, it's kind of two-faceted. So when I worked full-time for one of the media companies, I worked for Fox and Turner Broadcasting for the longest stretches of my career. And the day-to-day, we do technical support. So basically what we're responsible for is maintaining all of the technology that's utilized in creating production. So if you ever seen a control room with all the control room operators and their equipment in the studio, the camera operators, people that you don't see outside the scenes, editing, graphics, we support the systems and equipment that they utilize in order to create content.
Okay. So when you work on these big productions or for different networks, that's a lot of equipment. That's a lot of technology. So what are some things that maybe students could kind of help understand what that job looks like for you? When you say take care of the equipment or support the equipment, what types of things are those?
Well, during non-production hours or non-production days, we primarily maintain a lot of, so if there's problems with any particular device or systems, we'll work on it, get it back up to snuff, test it, make sure it's good. During live production segments, we basically support the on-air production that's going on. So if there's a problem, our primary job or focus is to keep the show on air. So a lot of the times, we don't always fix the problems as they happen. We'll either find workarounds. If it's a simple fix, yes, obviously. But other than that, we'll find workarounds or ways to keep the show going. And then once the show wraps up, we'll dig deeper into the problem, find out what caused it, try to ensure it doesn't happen again. So,
Yeah. So, in this world of everything is virtual right now, I think more and more people are realizing technology is great, but sometimes there's problems with it. So when it breaks, you guys fix it and make sure it stays working and on air. I love that.
Yeah, we're like triage operators in the hospital. So if something happens, the dramatic call goes out, we come rushing in, and we try to save the day.
That is super important. I love that. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey from once you graduated high school to where you are now? What did that look like for you? Because it doesn't happen overnight. So what did that journey look like for you?
Well, I've always been interested in TV and media production. As a kid, I used to watch TV all the time. Originally, I wanted to be an actor. And over the years, I kind of tried to pursue that. And then I realized that just wasn't my calling. And technology was the other thing that I really gravitated to. So I went to school in high school, I was a math major. And then I went into the military for a short stretch, and I was an electronic technician in the military. And then out of the military, I went to school for electrical engineering. And in that pursuit, I also landed a job with a film production company And that actually was my official start in the industry. So I did film production for a few years before eventually gravitating into TV. And in
Okay.
TV, I got into sports, and let's just say I've done a little bit of everything.
So what would you say would be your favorite area that you've worked in? You've worked in TV, movie production, sports. What has been the best part?
I love sports. Actually, I love film production too, but I also love sports. Sports is one of the things I've done for probably over 20 years. So, and every sporting event you could think of, I have actually done at some point in time. So I've done soccer, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, tennis, golf. I've touched them all. So some of the most recent, I would say, accomplishments is within the last 5 years, I've been working with the Olympic Committee. So
Oh,
currently, just to bring you up to speed, currently, I don't work full time for anyone. I have my own small production company, and so I support my clients, and that kind of opens up a little bit more of what I do for clients. So aside from basic engineering, technical support, I do creative development, which is creating product content or shows. Um, I do consultations. I do what we call installation, or we build out like broadcast facilities, studio space, and so on. And that is probably amongst many things I've done over the years. And now I do those for myself independently with various clients. And I have some US clients as well as international clients. I have a few clients in different countries around the world: London, Germany, Spain, Israel, China. And then I have domestic clients, which I support here as well.
yeah. So what could you tell us maybe the differences between working in the sports industry versus maybe in television or movie production? I know it's probably the same in some ways, but how is it different?
A movie production is a lot more intense and has a more longer, rigorous schedule to adhere to. And a lot of times we don't always meet those deadlines, but I mean, back in the days, film productions would run average maybe 6 months, 4 to 6 months. Now with the advent of technology and the digital realm, film productions probably run in the ballpark of sometimes a month to 3 months, maybe 4 months at most. Um, TV is more one of two ways primarily: either it's a tape production that we shoot, tape, edit, or something live. So live would be like news, sports, any of the sporting events you watch, award shows, and things like that. Where tape shows would be like the daytime soaps, the morning news show. No, the morning news shows are live. I'm sorry, I left those out, and the late night shows are also live. But a lot of your TV shows, your TV sitcoms, dramas, and so on, those are all, film taped, edited, and then ready for air.
Yeah. So I know that, everyone's journey is different. It's not always easy. Could you tell us maybe some obstacles that you faced along the way and maybe how you overcame those? What would be some things, some tips that you might could give students about overcoming obstacles?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think back at some of these obstacles because there have been many. And you're right, the road is never easy. Production is one of those things that kind of have some pretty long hours, especially when you're dealing with the actual production itself, be it taped or live. Our days are pretty long. But starting out, getting into film, I was actually surprised that I actually jumped into it as quick as I did. I First time ever, I applied for something that I saw an ad for. And it's not typically how most people get into this industry, but yeah, that's how I started. And coming in, the biggest part was biggest obstacle is really making a name for yourself, because both in TV and film production, especially if you work in an independent capacity, a lot of the work revolves around kind of the reputation you set for yourself, how skilled you are, how creative you are, how ambitious you are, how dedicated you are to your craft, and all these things. Those play a role in kind of building that resume or that profile that usually lands you further opportunities out there independently. In a staff position, when you work for a company, so if I work for like NBC, ABC directly, full time, then again, the obstacles are just pretty much the same. It's a learning curve, because film and TV definitely is one of the pretty much grows on the leading edge of technology. So there's always new things and new technologies coming out every year. So staying on top of those things is probably one of your biggest obstacles. It's one of those things you really got to be focused on, and, pay attention, and, learn the newer technologies and newer processes and standards that are coming out, and getting familiar with them, being familiar with the new equipment standards and so on. So it's kind of like a continuous learning curve. So if you're not really a studious person, then you probably will have a rough time. But to stay ahead, you got to stay on top of things, stay in those books, as they say.
Yes, I can imagine that would be difficult because technology is constantly changing. And so being able to learn that new technology and being excited to learn the technology is probably a big part of it.
Definitely so. There are people that transition through the industry. There are people that kind of get burnt out from doing this stuff for so long, and there are others that it's their life. So for me, I've been in this industry pretty much my entire life, and I haven't worked anywhere else. So I've just done a lot of different things, and some of the most bigger, more popular productions. I did the Grammys for 7 years. I've done pretty much all the award shows, Oscars, Academies. Sports, I've done everything from seasonal games to playoffs to championships. I've done X Games. I've done football. The Olympics is one of the biggest accomplishments of recent, because that's something I always looked at doing. And there wasn't a doorway at the time I was looking. And then about 5 years ago, that doorway opened up. I jumped in. So I've been working with the Olympic Committee for the last few years and the last few games.
That's incredible. So could you tell us maybe what it is about those open doors? Like, how do those open doors come along? What advice would you have for students when looking for opportunities or anything like that?
Well, one of the things I do, I don't really do lecture presentations that much, but I do work a lot with college and high school students. So outside of the programs that I'm affiliated with, I serve on the board for a couple nonprofit organizations as well. And one of the things we try to do is trying to educate and expose students to a lot of the advantages or opportunities within the media and technology realm, and not just about the technology side. I mean, it's from legal to medical to almost any career you could think of out there. And somewhere or another, it is supported in this industry as well. So that's a part of our exposure when we go and speak at different schools and so on. And one of the biggest things I focus on with students is building a network and learning how to do that. Networking is probably one of the most fundamental ways you can grow. And that's not just for our industry, it's any career field. The more you network, the more you expose yourself to more people that either are aligned with or associated with things that you're interested in and your career. That's a way of you building a platform to help yourself grow and move forward out there in different fields.
One of my absolute favorite things about talking to our industry professional guest is every single one of them has mentioned networking. And it's so important. And for me, I know it was something that I did not even know existed in high school, much less how to do it. So I think that is a key factor in any career path that a student chooses, is learning to be able to build their network and how that even happens. Do you have any advice for students as to what they should do to start building their network now?
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that most of them have already started it, but don't realize how they do it. The biggest avenue for networking now is the social media platforms, Facebook, IG, so on. I mean, a lot of people use it for social purposes, but you can use it on a professional aspect as well. Almost every business, media entity, company, hospital, all of these companies and entities have social media platforms that they reside on. That's how they reach out and give exposure as well. So a lot of the same ways we utilize it to network and build friendships, when you build or meet someone new on IG or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, that's the start of building something. So LinkedIn to me is probably one of the better tools in which I use to build a professional network environment, but you can use all of the social media platforms as well. And
yeah. In fact, that's how we met, on LinkedIn.
Exactly. Ironically enough, that's how I've gotten most of my jobs and most of my clients is through LinkedIn.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice for sure. So, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that you have worked with different programs that expose students to different careers, and that's a big part of what Reach and Teach does. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what careers have you discovered since you were in high school? So I know for me, I did not realize there was such a big world of opportunity out there. So could you maybe tell students about some different career paths that you've seen all along the way that they may not know about?
Wow. Well, that's a good one because I actually covered that in a lot of the presentations I have because now with technology being the way it is, it's opened the doors for so much. So some careers that weren't originally careers, like a DJ. DJs were just people that played in clubs and so on and parties. Now you can make a career of DJs. And I'm sure some of the biggest DJs out there, like Khalid and so on, a lot of these students already know. So that's one avenue. Now you can actually also develop a career, also with the advance of technology, is in doing anything like social media critiquing or open up avenues like blogs that talk about topic contents and so on. These are all new career platforms that really didn't exist back in the days when I was younger. Those were things you got from the newspaper and you got on the news. So, and as technology grows, more opportunities become readily available for you to just create careers. And one of the things I try to focus on with most students is trying to build a career into something you like doing, because that makes that transitional work a lot easier. Because sometimes you get caught up in careers that are just 9 to 5 routines, and it's not even a career profession where it's just a job. And a job is something you go to 9 to 5 and collect a paycheck. I think more professional career opportunities are things that you build more of an interest in, you like doing, and something you can see yourself doing for a while. So I try to get people to pair or marry those interests in some way. So if you're a computer programming major, you do coding and so on, and you love playing video games, why not try to pursue a career as a programmer for a video game company, or a program tester or Q&A person who analyzes the development of of those platforms, both the physical hardware and software side, to make sure they meet whatever specs the company's guaranteeing in those games and so on. And there's so many opportunities like
Absolutely.
that. And now you talk about sports, the newest sport out there is gaming. So we have so many gaming circles that these are kids now that play video games at home. Now you could develop a team or play individually and win millions just playing video games, which you do at home. So there's so many career opportunities out there, most of which are created through the advantages of technology. But yeah.
I love what you said about, marrying your two interests together because, like you mentioned earlier, even with film production or movie production, they need accountants, they need caterers, they need people behind the scenes that if you have an interest in finance, but you also love movies, then that would be a perfect career opportunity for you.
Exactly. And those are some of the marriages. So, like I said, some of the things we used to do when we did engineering the world, that was one of the things we focused on. So I usually had people from different parts of the company, from legal. So I had attorneys come in. I had our medical nurse that worked in a facility. I had people from supplying logistics, marketing, editing. Well, editing is more on the production side, but some of the traditional production related
Mhm.
fields that are out there that people go into corporate America for, they can still see as an opportunity in media and media entities in the corporate sector.
And who would ever think that you need a nurse in the sports and entertainment industry? But that's so important.
Yes, it is, and especially in times we're living in now. So usually most facilities, they would have a nurse that would be on call every day, and probably a doctor that stopped in either a couple times a week or a few times a month and so on. But yeah, there's so many weird opportunities out there that people wouldn't expect in so many different fields. But if you do like a certain thing, so like you said, if you want to go into finance and make entertainment, every company has a finance department. So does a media related company. So yes.
That's great. So, my next question for you is, what is something that you wish you would have learned at a younger age?
Oh my goodness. Same thing you mentioned, networking. Networking is something that I gravitated to after I got into the business. But networking is key because I got to credit that with a lot of the opportunities I've had in my career. So, I mean, from my opportunity at Fox, which I got into through a friend of mine who I know who was a video operator. And he had mentioned that they were looking for some engineers over there. So unbeknownst to me, his good friend in the company, was one of the managers in the engineering department. And he arranged an interview. It went well, and boom, boom, I was there. So networking has a lot of positives. And depending on the person that you've developed that relationship with, networking wise, because networking is not just getting a business card from somebody and calling them about a job opportunity. It's really about building relationships, because the more someone gets to know you, know who you are, know your character, your personality, type of person you are, your work ethics, and so on, the easier it is for them to say, hey, you're looking for somebody. I got somebody here I think you might be interested in. Great credentials, qualified, blah, 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 and so on. And next thing you know, that doorway or that opportunity is now open to you. So
Building relationships. Yes. And you're right. Networking is so much more than just running into someone, meeting someone. It's all about building those relationships and staying in touch. So very cool. Okay, so my last question before we open it up to questions from students is, what actionable advice do you have for students that may be interested in your career? What should they do now while they're still in high school?
Okay, depending on what aspect of this industry they would like to get into, look at it twofold. Either you can go on the technical side or you can go on the production side. And production side are more of your staff operators, like your director, producers, writers, and so on. In that avenue, there's a lot of programs in almost any collegiate school, and even in high schools now, where they offer opportunities for you to take that kind of training early. So if you know you're interested in those aspects of it, then I would definitely advise you to jump on that opportunity while you have it now. And there's so many programs out there now to get people interested in media and technology. If you're going on the other side of it, which is the technology side of the industry, then that's going to require more of a stronger, harder skill set to learn, which is engineering. Engineering is going to be a core discipline that you're going to probably need to get into most of the technical side of it. Right now, because of, again, advances in technology, networking is a big thing. And by networking, I mean more of your IP networking, which is network infrastructure, not just for computers and laptops, but now a lot of what we do information-wise, both video, audio, data, and so on, is transferred over network platforms. So network technology plays a huge part of it, aside from just basic core engineering technology training. So if those are things that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend you jump on it. If you don't have an outlet to it, then don't feel free to jump on any social media platform and you can research it. You can go on Facebook and just look for groups on Facebook that deals with media technology. Same thing with LinkedIn and so on. And even every one of them, I mean, IG, you name it. If you want to, you can find almost any media company on any of those platforms as well. And you can do a little bit of research about them, go to their websites, find out about some of the programs they have, training opportunities, internship opportunities, and so on. So, another big part of that, of course, is trying to establish a network of folks that can get you or propel you into that direction. So that's also a good key thing to really get started on pretty early as well. Now that you have that opportunity too.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned earlier when you worked for different networks, there were different programs that reached out to college or high school students. Is that something that you see a lot of in the entertainment industry, where these media companies are wanting to reach younger and younger generations to let them know what
That is
opportunities are there?
absolutely true, because with newer minds comes newer ideas, newer technologies. I mean, what we have today, we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. I mean, even as simple as something as the internet didn't exist that far back. So you look at things like Yahoo and Google. I mean, I've been around for the launches of those companies, and most of them were started by college students. So again, yes, there are a lot of those opportunities out there, and the media companies know, moving forward and growing forward, you're always going to need fresh ideas. You're going to need new minds. All of the older folks that's been in the industry for a while, they're going to retire at some point. So you're always going to need fresh blood in there that has that same vibrant energy and dedication and focus to come in and take them to that next level. So yes, there are so many opportunities out there for students to get into it.
So,
And
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And more companies are going to much younger ages too. So we're establishing programs in middle school, elementary schools. When I was with, again, when I was with Turner, I did a program at a school in Harlem where all of the students in that school, every class was outfitted with MacBook iMacs or MacBook Pro laptops, as well as they had a lab that taught everything from editing to audio to video and all through ed. And they had programs with a lot of the other companies, like they had programs with Apple and with ABC and Turner and NBC, and they had people coming in speak. But a lot of donations of equipment that they got were from those companies as well. So you have elementary school kids now that are learning technology at a way, way younger age than back when I was a kid.
That's so interesting. And you're exactly right. I mean, younger and younger, there's just more and more opportunities available. So, do you think it would be safe to say that if you had a student that was very passionate, interested in this industry, if they reached out to some of these media companies, what do you think the chances are that those media companies would be excited to tell them more and interested in filling them in on what's going on in the industry? I think so many times students get nervous about asking or think that, they don't matter, but sometimes you just got to ask. You never know what the answer might be.
That's absolutely true. It's about taking that risk or that chance, anything in a career field. Everything you do professionally is a risk. So no matter how you look at it, when you reach out for a job, especially if you're landing a job in a whole other city or another country and you got to relocate, that's a risk. You don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to work out, but you got to just try to put your best foot forward, focus, study hard, stay dedicated, learn as much as you can. And, like with anything else in life, a lot of what we do in the workforce, as like in school, it's about how well we push ourselves and present ourselves in those particular areas. And so just like in school, when you push yourself hard and the teacher recognizes that, compliments you on it, and talks to you more one-on-one, same thing in a job environment. When you go in and you work hard and it's recognized by your team management or your senior leadership, and they let you know when you get these opportunities for advancements and raises, same thing, but it's all a risk, and you've got to really put yourself out there and take that, take that chance to advance yourself in whatever your career interest that you feel makes you happy.
Absolutely. Well, we have a couple of questions from students. So the first one that we have is, this one's two-part. How long does it take to prepare for a big award show like the Grammys? And do you get to meet famous celebrities when you work at events like that?
Well, the prep time on 90% of the productions that you see on television is very, very long. So the Grammys, for me, when I worked the Grammys, it was what we call a 30-day billet for me. So we started 30 days prior to, from loading in, setting up, and a couple weeks in, we set times for all the acts to come in and do their rehearsals, sound checks, and so on. And all of that is done for a one-day show. So yes, same thing for some of your major sporting events. So if you watch a basketball game on television, depending on where we are in the season, it's just a regular seasonal game. The average production team may come in at like 11 a.m. or 12 noon, and the game is not till 7. So yeah, and then even the bigger their event, the bigger the prep, So for the Olympics, when I work the Olympics, I go 6 months prior to the game starting. And there are people that go a year before that and are doing things. So the setup time is kind of revolved around the complexity of whatever production that it is that you're working on.
Wow. A lot of time goes into such a short show, but you're exactly right that, it takes months of planning and lots of people on the team. Sometimes students don't think about when they're watching a TV show or a sporting event, how many people actually work behind the scenes to make that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. So when you look at your favorite sport, there's hundreds of people behind the scenes, both on location and back at that network studio that's working to make all of that possible. So there's always tons of people, So when you watch the credit rolls from most TV shows or film productions or so on, all of those people that they show, and those credits roll for minutes. So that's a lot of people, and all the various different companies that are involved as well. So yes, it takes a lot of people to put a lot of stuff together.
Yes. So last question for you today is, how has this pandemic affected the industry, and what type of changes do you see coming out of this on the other side?
Well, let's just say COVID is definitely a game changer. COVID-19. I always say COVID, but COVID-19. But yeah, it's definitely a game changer. So initially, it did like really hamper the industry intensely in the beginning. So I was actually in the middle of setting up for the NCAA tournaments, March Madness set up in March, and I was working at a venue in New York, doing a CBS production of that. And we started day one setup with just trucks rolling in, setting up, and by day two, it was all canceled.
Wow.
It was all sent home, and everything was shut down from there. All your network studios, sound stages, operators, everybody. So the entire industry was shut down for a while. And then as we started doing more and more research into COVID, and they started finding safer ways to work around and work within the environment of this pandemic, they came up with a lot of safety protocols, which made working with the productions a little bit more intense. Space is a big thing because in our environment, we tend to be always kind of packed together, like in a control room. You got a bunch of people sitting together. So because of COVID, that's no longer a reality. So spacing wise, there's things that are done differently. Typically I've spent the last several months doing golf tours, and typically there's probably maybe 2 or 3 primary production units aside from a bunch of other trucks that's in the camp. Now there's twice as much because that's their way of spacing out the crew, so everybody's not sitting in the same environment. So you have a couple people in one truck, a couple people in another, a couple people in another. So COVID has definitely changed the way that not just media production, but almost every job is doing moving forward. Safety protocols have been improved in a lot of areas, checks and so on. Back in the days when we were just concerned about somebody coming to work with the flu and getting sick, or making a couple other people sick and going home, now we're talking about something that spreads a little bit wider, further, and affects a larger margin of people. So definitely a game changer. With that being said, what kind of grew up in that? I mean, we're still on the stages of media streaming, media platforms, and so on. But that took a big leap during COVID, and that's probably the leap moving forward. And I'm sure every student out there has already realized movie theaters are shut down. They probably will not be opened up again no time soon. And if they are, they're going to have some stringent spacing and safety requirements involved. But because of that, now the other way for us to actually watch movies is online. So a lot of your movie theater companies have online platforms or have ventured with other online media platforms like Netflix, Hulu, and so on, and Prime, Amazon Prime, to actually have the opportunity to air productions now, feature films, and so on. So that's another game changer. So from radio to studio TV shows, they've been shut down for a while. All of those late night shows are starting to come back in their studios. The morning shows are starting to come back in their studios. If you look at the studios now, you see that, all these people are sitting like 8, 10, 12 feet apart. They're interviewing people with a long boom mic pole extension just to keep the distance. So all of those changes, and we're still working out ways to improve on that. We'll eventually get back to some level of normalcy, but nowhere near what we were before. So it's a lot of changes to look forward to.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Is there anything else you want to add, last thoughts to share with students before we go?
Well, the biggest thing I can definitely let them know is, outside of the programs that I've mentioned that I've worked with or started, there are so many other programs out there that students can jump into. And it's not just for media, but it's for anything you want to do, from music to dance. There's a lot of outlets now that are opening up programs, especially the younger kids, to get them enticed at a younger age, to help them develop that stronger skill set. So by the time they reach high school, they're already somewhat proficient in some of these areas. So that is the biggest thing I would definitely recommend that most students would look forward to, is try to find a program that kind of meets an interest that you have and join it. And even if it's something you try and you don't like it, you have tons of other things. As a child, you have so many interests. And the more you engage in those interests, the more you provide yourself an opportunity for a career. So you have executives leaving companies now that are becoming chefs because they've always wanted to cook. You know, you got people leaving so many different environments doing different things because, you know, hey, I want to try this. I have a lot of hobbies. So I always tell students to embrace their hobbies. I cook, I travel, I do photography, I'm a creative developer in the filmmaking process, and I do technology engineering and so on. So I've actually embraced every one of my hobbies. I've been cooking for years, as much as I've been in the industry. I've been doing photography for at least 17 years. So embrace those hobbies and interests that you have, because you never know, somewhere down the line, those may be your new career fields.
Absolutely. And you don't know until you try. So why not try?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone being with us today. We'll have a new guest every Thursday, so don't forget to check out our website to see who's up next. But thank you, Dave. You have a wonderful
Thank you
afternoon.
guys for having me. I love being here, and definitely will be watching out and keeping an eye on the show. I kind of like this platform. What you guys are doing is amazing. So I wish you much
Absolutely.
continued success.
Bye, everyone.